Minecraft 1.19 has changed Redstone forever, finally adding Sculk Sensors into survival, along with Allays, chest boats, and more. Redstone has a lot of new features, so in this video, I'll explain them all. This video is about new 1.19 Redstone features only. If you want to know more about normal Redstone features, there's an iCard on the screen that will link you to a guide about that. The biggest change to Redstone in 1.19 is the addition of the Sculk Sensor. These are found in the Deep Dark biome and are mineable with a Silk Touch hoe, and then you can pick up and use this item for all of your different redstone projects. Also, what's good to note is that this block cannot be pushed by pistons, it's not broken by them either. So for instance, if we were to break that and then try this, you can see that definitely does work. Sculk Sensors are a form of wireless redstone in the sense that they can detect things that are not linked to them by a redstone trail. So for instance, if we're, let's say, over here and we walk around, a signal will travel from us over to the Sculk sensor there, and it will light up outputting a redstone signal. The vibration that travels from us or whatever object makes the vibration over to the Sculk sensor travels at 20 blocks a second or 1 block per in-game tick. And then once it lights up, it is activated for exactly 2 seconds, and then has an incredibly small cooldown where it can't sense anything else, and it also cannot sense anything additional while it is lit up. So for instance, when we move here and then be still, it will not continue to stay on even though we're providing more potential frequencies for it. Although something that is still good to know when you're working with these is if you crouch down, you will not have any vibrations on there, but if you walk over it, it will trigger on. Now Sculk blocks have a radius that they can sense things from, which of course makes sense, as let's say we were going over here and moving around. It wouldn't really be that practical if it could sense us from all the way there. And so that range is 8 blocks in a sort of circle, or as much of a circle as you can get with blocks. It does go both directions, but this is it shown on a flat surface. So basically anything within an 8 block radius of this, the signal does get sent there. So let's say if we were jumping around here making some vibration noise, you can see nothing goes to the sensor. But if we went here to a block that is part of that radius, a signal travels from us over to that and it is activated. So just be aware when you're using this to sense something, whatever you're trying to have it sense has to be within 8 blocks of it. But something that's very important to know about these Sculk sensors is that there's 2 different modes that they have, and both of them provide a lot of data to you, making them even more useful than you might think. So the first one I like to just call normal, but it's basically a redstone line coming out of a Sculk sensor with no comparator, and the second one has a comparator coming out of it and then a redstone line. So the first one, the signal strength you get, because you do get a signal strength when you activate this, you can see there for instance it lit up the redstone lamp. The signal strength on the normal one is inversely proportional to your distance to it, and this distance is not block based, it's actually quite interesting that way. So for instance, let's say we were on the very edge of this block, or sort of just the farthest we can be with it actually still activating there, it'll have one of those lamps turn on. Let's say we go to the edge of this block, and we jump, you can see 2 blocks lit up. But let's stay on the same block and go to the other side of it, but our crosshair is still on the block. You would think it would still light up 2, but right here it actually lights up 3. So this is more precise than just seeing the exact block you're on. It can go all the way down to the certain part of the block that you're on. So the 8 blocks away from the sensor are sort of cut up into 15 slices, each one with a different amount of power output that it gives, and each one of them being the exact same size. So of course that could be quite useful, especially since in certain cases you do want to know what part of a block a certain mob is on. Now the second mode tells you what this Sculk sensor sensed, not the distance of it. So for instance, let's drop a block on the ground within any part of the range, it doesn't matter, like right here. So that lit up 5. Now let's break a block. If we do that, you can see it lit up 13. Let's light something with a flint and steel. You can see that lit up 12, and so on and so forth. Each one of these has a different amount of signal strength that it gives, and I will show you every single signal strength difference, as I think it's important to break this down correctly if you want to use this comparator output effectively. So first of all, what type of vibrations will cause an output of only 1? The first one is walking or stepping. So you can see if we do this and we trigger this, only one of these redstone lamps turn on. And that's all you can do to get a signal output of 1. For an output of 2, you need a flying entity to flap its wings. So for instance, a bat. Now of course that was it just spawning in here. But yeah, you can see right here, 2 of these turn on when it flaps its wings right here. If we swim, that will output a signal strength of 3. So let's take a look right here, and you can see there 3 of those lamps are turned on. Of course, now we're doing something else, so it has a different strength. For a signal strength of 4, you need to fly with an elytra. So if we fly around here like this, gliding around, you can see 4 of those lamps turned on and not the 5th one, because the signal strength was only 4. For the Sculk sensor, to power 5 blocks, you need to drop from a distance where you'll get hurt. So for instance right here you can see that powered on 5 of those. The other thing that can do this is if an Enderman teleports, and actually we can get this Enderman to teleport by shooting at it. So if we do that, you can see it teleported away and 5 of those lamps turned on. A bunch of different things will give a signal strength of 6, including powering a note block, also having a minecart be moving, or splashing in and out of water, sort of like what we were doing right here. If we do this right here, you'll notice this does actually have 6 of these redstone power on. If a wolf shakes off after getting wet, this will also power on. Or if a block changes, now this does not mean breaking a block, but it means things like, let's say, putting a disc in a jukebox, that will power that on to 6. Another thing that will do that is having books be placed on a lectern, having a log be stripped of its bark, having grass be tilled into farmland or a path, and all these things, as well as other actions that would change the state of a block, will give you power level 6. Alright, now to have it power on at level 7, you have to finish drinking something. So for instance, if we just went like this, that wouldn't make it turn on, but if we fully drink something, and obviously this would just be potions, that will power on at level 7. If a TNT or a creeper is primed, basically meaning it's about to explode, so if we do that right here, you can see the signal strength is 7. And finally, a projectile being fired like a snowball. This does not count bow and arrows, because that will give you a stronger signal strength. But let's say throwing an ender pearl or throwing a snowball, that will give you that 7 signal strength. Feeding a mob successfully will give you a signal strength of 8, and also interacting with any mob in that way. So for instance, giving a golden apple to a zombie villager with weakness, healing a tamed wolf, healing an iron golem, giving a panda a food item, and of course that interaction would include things like sitting up and down your mobs, so for instance my pet wolf there. So not the actual throwing of the projectile, but when the projectile lands, that gives us a signal strength of 8, so let's try that here. We'll throw a snowball in the air, and when it lands, we will get that signal strength of 8. If we finish to eat something, that will give us that signal strength of 8. If a mob is hurt or killed, that will give us a signal strength of 8 as well. Also for all these things, it does not just count when the player does it, it's when it happens at all. So for instance, even a horse eating a piece of grass, that would also give you that level 8 of eating. Equipping an item onto an armor stand or to yourself will give a signal strength of 9, as will using a pair of shears in any way. So for instance right here, right clicking on a pumpkin. Of course if you're breaking something with it, that's different, but for that use of the shears, that'll give you that 9 signal strength. And the only other thing that gives you 9 signal strength is a Ravager roaring. A dispenser failing to dispense an item, so for instance like this, that'll give us a signal strength of 10, as well as a door, trapdoor, or fence gate closing. Opening it is a different strength, but if you're closing it, that'll give you a signal strength of 10. And also if a block is activated, like let's say this lever, and we deactivate it, that will also give a signal strength of 10. With the final thing of a signal strength 10 being a tripwire hook being detached. And to get a power level of 11 is basically the opposite of 10, so that would be opening a trapdoor, door, or a fence gate. That would be activating something like a lever, not deactivating it, and also setting a tripwire, not breaking it. Power level 12 is all about placing items. So if you place down a fluid, that would be let's say water or lava, that could also include filling a cauldron with those. That will give you the level of 12, so you can see right there, there's the level 12. If we place a block that's not wool, then that would also be level 12. Or if we place down an entity, so generally you would think of that as let's say using a spawn egg, which that would count, but if you're counting something that can be done in survival, then that could mean like placing down a painting or an armor stand, and that'll give you that level of 12 as well. And just like how power level 11 was the opposite of power level 10, power level 13 is the opposite of power level 12. So basically if we pick up a liquid, that'll give us a power level of 13. If we kill an entity or destroy it, like let's say even just a painting would do that, that will be level 13. Or if we break a block, that would also be level 13. To get a power level of 14, we have to reel in a fishing rod, or we can close a chest. So if a chest is opened and we wait for that signal to stop, then we close it. That will give us a signal of 14. Also, if a piston is retracted, so we'll do that right here, and this is surrounded by wool, so the lever does not affect this. When that is retracted, you can see that goes to level 14. And to get the highest power level possible, which is 15, you have to either open a chest, that'll give you level 15, you have to extend a piston, that'll also give us 15, or you can explode a creeper or a piece of TNT. Also, playing an instrument gives us level 15, because these goat horns are so loud. Now of course goat horns are the only instruments in Minecraft so far, although the tag of instrument play does make me wonder if in the future we'll see more instruments coming to the game. I wouldn't doubt it. And the final thing that gives us a power level of 15 is a lightning strike, and that is now the exhaustive list of everything that these Sculk sensors are powered on by. But there's still some other things about Sculk sensors you may want to know. So for instance, the sound that the Sculk sensor plays when it's powered on can get a little bit annoying, and if you want to get rid of that, all you have to do is waterlog it. Then it can still totally work and pick up signals. You can see it kind of turning colors there, meaning that it is working, but you do not hear any of the sounds. Also, a very important thing about the Sculk sensors that you need to know is that the vibrations that it detects from anything in their way, they can be interrupted by one thing and one thing only, and that is wool blocks. Now if we have, let's say, wool blocks right here with a Sculk sensor on the other side, and if we jump and walk around here, it doesn't sense it. But if we get to an angle where it would be able to sense it, like right here, you can see it travels to it. So more or less think of it as if you can see the Sculk sensor, it can probably sense you. Now of course this does depend. For instance, right here we're walking around and it can't sense us, but if there's a very wide margin of being able to see it, then it will not be blocked by the wool. But if there's also a wide margin of it not being able to be seen, then it will block the sounds. Also, if you're walking on top of wool blocks, then they will not give any vibrations to the sensors. Same if you're walking on carpets. And if you drop an item, that is something that will be sensed by the Sculk sensor at a power of 5, by the way. And that is stopped if you drop it on a wool block or on a carpet block. And so that is a great way of having that not affect your builds if you're dealing with item sorters or something like that. Just be aware if you drop a wool block or a carpet block on a standard block, that signal is not stopped. And the official term for stopping the signals is the signals being occluded. So now from the big part of the redstone, which is the Sculk blocks, onto something a little bit more niche, which is the Allays. Now I'm not going to fully go into all their functionality, as I will cover that more in a separate video. But for now, there are some interesting redstone things you should know about them. So the way they work around redstone is if a note block is played, that note block is what they'll bring items to. When we turn this on, what will happen is every single time the note block rings, then that allay will be told that it needs to take the items to that for the next 30 seconds. Of course, it also goes and picks up items from the dropper there, and once it's picked up enough items, it'll go down there, drop the blocks to that note block, not to us, even though it was tamed by us, and once it thinks it's dropped enough of those, then it will go back up and grab some more gold blocks. Now if we break the connections that the note block is not being played, what will basically happen, the allay will continue to bring blocks to that note block for the next 30 seconds, but after that it will stop and it'll bring the blocks back to you, and you can have a setup with tons of allays in a row next to tons of note blocks, where every single allay is connected to a different note block sorting a different item, and you can make super amazing item sorters through that. But more or less in terms of redstone, their only functionality is interacting with the note blocks, so having a little clock set up to those that turns on that note block at least once every 30 seconds is great. And of course also with the dispensers here, or the droppers, you can use these as a sort of item sorter instead of a complicated hopper item sorter. And you can right click on the allay to take the block out of its hand, and right click on it again to put a different block in its hand. This also does not have to be a block, it can be any item, even non-stackable items, like let's say a water bucket here. That's what makes this really useful, is the fact that it can sort these unstackable items. They can even go inside minecarts if you want to use that for your build. On to the chest boat, or the boat with chest. The first thing you need to know about them is that they can be dispensed by a dispenser, which is awesome. It does make sense considering the fact that things like shulker boxes can be dispensed by a dispenser, and boats can be as well. But if we flick this on, you can see we have a chest boat that came out of there, and this only works if it's facing water. So you could definitely use this dispensing the chest boats in some builds for a lot of good redstone purposes, especially because of their integration with hoppers, which I'm going to go into now. So if we get a chest boat with hoppers, if we place down a hopper and then we have the chest boat go on top of it, and we place items in the chest boat, which you do by shifting and right clicking on it if you're outside of it, or just pressing your inventory key when you're inside of it, sort of like if you're accessing a standard chest. Then basically we'll place some items inside of here, let's say a stack of items or even just one item. It'll go into the hopper, and this happens somewhat quickly here, about at the same speed as it would with a normal hopper to hopper or chest to hopper, but still it's pretty cool that it interacts with these, as I never really thought it would. It's also nice because it interacts with them in two different ways. It interacts with them from above as well. So if we have a hopper directly above this, and we put some items in here, like let's say like that, and then we row this over so that it's somewhat underneath here, and we press the E key, you can see there are dispensers coming into our boat with chest, and then they're actually going right through it into this item hopper. So you could have setups where you go hopper, chest boat, sort of in a line, or maybe going up and down, whatever you want, and you could save at least 50% of your hoppers, if not more, as long as you're okay with having all these boats around, which may cause a little bit more lag. Another awesome functionality you may not have guessed has been added to this is if you have a dropper drop an item into the chest boat, then that item will go right into the boat with chests inventory there. Although if it's a dispenser, that will not happen. And so that's also a great way of loading it up. I'm not sure exactly when this would be better than a hopper, but there are certainly some times when that would be the case. And so you can use this dropper to load it right into there. Now the hopper and chest boat functionality is actually a lot cooler than you would think, as of course just being a cheaper hopper is nice, but nothing really revolutionary to the redstone scene, at least not incredibly revolutionary. But something that definitely is the fact that you can put multiple hoppers into the same chest boat, and they all work at the same speed. In fact, you can make this into an absolutely insane system. So we're going to try that right here. What we're going to do is we're going to have 9 of these hoppers, and if we take a chest boat and we basically row it underneath this, we could even place it underneath here, but we can row it as well, get our way out of there, and we look into this. All of these items are funneling into this at the exact same time. These are actually going at the full speed that each one of these hoppers can handle, and as you can see, it is incredibly quick. We can have items go into this boat with chest from 21 different hoppers at the exact same time, which definitely looks pretty crazy, and you can see the number of polished andesite is going up very quickly. If we get to the very center, it'll go up even quicker, as the more of these hoppers are within range, the better. And technically, if you could place this exactly in the center, all 21 of these could be active at the same time. And not only can you put an insane amount of inputs into this, you can also put a lot of outputs into this. I'm going to place down 9 hoppers going into the ground, then place down a boat with chest, and I'm going to fill it up with these polished andesite, and then row it to the very center of the hoppers. And once I've done this, each one of these hoppers are being equally filled at the standard speed as one hopper going into another hopper would be, with items from this chest boat. If we look into the chest boat, you can see those items draining incredibly quickly, 9 at a time. These also do tend to group up somewhat sorted in the chests that they go into, because once you have a single item in here, it somewhat acts as an item sorter, because the items that are already in here can get more of them inside of the hopper with no other items being allowed. Because mangrove roots and leaves can be waterlogged, both these different types of blocks can have incredibly new redstone functionalities to them. So for instance, if we place water inside of this leaf block, we can have a working cobblestone generator that is very, very small, with literally just 3 blocks to hold in the lava and 1 block to hold in the water, which is of course the waterlogged block itself. Then the water will flow, touch this, and it will turn into cobblestone. Interestingly enough, if the lava flows on top of this, nothing will happen, but if it's on the side, then it will act as if it's touching water. The only too bad thing being that you cannot push leaves with a piston, especially if you push waterlogged leaves, the water will be destroyed as well as the leaf. However, with the mangrove roots, there's some separate functionalities making them even better, so they can be waterlogged as well. What makes them better than the leaves is that you cannot power a leaf in the same sense as you can power most full blocks. So here, if we power this, it just doesn't go through. It's a transparent block that cannot be powered. But for whatever reason, mangrove roots, although they are transparent, can be powered. So if we have power on this end, it will power in over there. And of course, powering a block basically means a redstone signal can travel through it. And so having a waterloggable block that a redstone signal can travel through is quite a unique thing to the mangrove root, as it's the only item in the game which can do so while still being waterlogged. And you can actually push a mangrove root even when it's waterlogged, but the waterlogged part of it will disappear. So those items also present a lot of interesting redstone uses. There are a lot of amazing builds you can do with all of these, and from deadly TNT traps that trigger when you get close to them, all the way to amazing things like lighting walkways that will turn on when you walk next to them. So for instance, sort of like a motion activated light is. There's all kinds of things you can make with these amazing new redstone blocks. Now don't go skulking around. If you enjoyed the video, press the like button. See you later.